anti-Semitism is massively on the rise in this country. It is a really, really big problem. And now our national broadcaster, the BBC, well, a whistleblower is alleging that anti-Semitism at the BBC has become normalised, has accused the broadcaster of failing to take seriously repeated claims of anti-Semitic behaviour and attitudes within the organisation. This anonymous member of staff, who is Jewish, experienced member of staff, said they had been forced to endure anti-Semitic and anti-Israeli comments on a near daily basis, only for their comments to be dismissed by managers. We talked a lot about Greg Wallace today. We talked about BBC management being under fire. Well, writing anonymously for The Telegraph, this member of staff of the BBC wrote, "Anti-Semitism exists in the newsrooms of Britain's public service broadcasters. It has done for years, and it is alive and well today, refuelled by the events of the 7th of October and after. I've experienced it firsthand too much in my career at the corporation, both before and since the Hamas attacks." There are other media organisations that are accused of anti-Semitism as well. Jay Rayner, who is a restaurant critic, very well-known, respected restaurant critic, well, he has quit The Observer and accused his sister title, The Guardian, of employing anti-Semites, and its editor of lacking the courage to take them on. I'm sure Kath Feiner, who is the editor of The Guardian, would deny that. The Guardian said it took the allegations seriously and had a zero-tolerance approach to anti-Semitism. Really? Okay, interesting. The BBC says, "We are deeply concerned to read this article about the experiences of a member of staff. It's unacceptable that anyone should face this in their workplace. We deplore anti-Semitism and all forms of discrimination or harassment. We urge the writer to discuss this with their manager." The writer has done that and has had, in the writer's view anyway, those claims dismissed. "We urge the writer to discuss this with their manager, or if they feel unable to do so, to contact our confidential bullying and harassment helpline or use our whistleblowing service so that these issues can be investigated and addressed and the staff member can receive the appropriate support." Let's talk to Gary Mond. He's chairman of the National Jewish Assembly. Gary, do you believe the BBC when they say they deplore anti-Semitism and all forms of discrimination or harassment?
Generally, no. And I read the article in The Telegraph, and what drew my attention was the very last sentence. "Actions speak louder than words." We haven't seen actions, both on the part of the BBC, on the part of many other institutions as well. Anti-Semitism, as you quite rightly say, is getting totally out of control. We need to see action at government level, and that is what we're not seeing.
Yeah, and that is a very, very good point. The Guardian as well, saying it takes allegations of and has a zero-tolerance approach to anti-Semitism. I mean, do you believe them?
No, in a similar vein. But the question is, what action do we need to see?
Yeah, what action is that? I mean, what do you think can deal with this scourge, Gary?
Yes, my views are we need to see the pro-Palestine marches banned. We need to see the so-called Palestine flag banned. It is a terror flag, as I've explained on your programme many times before. We need to see a stream of P45s issued to those in the public sector who are guilty of anti-Semitism. This needs to be done quickly, forcefully, and there will be many examples of people who should lose their jobs. We actually need to see steps taken across the board. And we're not seeing that.
We've seen as well within the BBC that a union, the TUC, has recommended to its members, recommended to members of the National Union of Journalists as well, which is meant to be an impartial organisation politically, that they wear Palestinian garb, they wear Palestinian colours, they wear Palestinian scarves on a day of action for Palestine. I'm not sure why they say that, given that Palestine is a place that doesn't exist. But anyway, there is clearly a lot of pro-Palestinian sentiment there. There have been BBC employees who've resigned from that union as well. There's been a big report, we discussed it at the time, Gary, talking about 1,500 different allegations anyway of anti-Israeli bias and other allegations of anti-Semitism in BBC reporting. This is our national broadcaster. We pay a licence fee for this. Can we trust them when it comes to reporting anti-Semitism in this country and indeed the Middle East?
The straight answer is no. Words fail me when I hear about the plans to have a workplace day to wear keffiyehs. This is simply a form of Jew hatred. Nothing more and nothing less. And it needs to be stopped. And once again, it goes back to government to try to do something about it. What are the government actually doing? Let me give you an example. It's not actually got into the national press in the last 3 days, but the government are participating in a major examination of anti-Semitism. And together they've appointed John Mond to lead it, and he's been joined by a voice from the Conservative Party's past, Penny Mordaunt. If you investigate, you'll see what I'm talking about. And that is simply words and not actions. We're going to see a report that's probably going to take 2 years to write, and nothing will be done.
And that is the worry, isn't it, Gary? Because we're just seeing this rising. We're just seeing this anti-Semitism rising in our society. I mean, how do you see it? There are people out and about who are observant Jews, often wearing very visual symbols. But we're seeing time and time again, I mean, I was talking to Nicole Lampert yesterday, a very inspiring Jewish journalist who campaigns on these issues, about school buses being attacked, people shouting about Israel, blaming Jewish people in this country have absolutely nothing to do with the actions of Benjamin Netanyahu for what he is doing. I'm not saying everything he's doing is right, I'm not saying everything he's doing is wrong, but what I do know is that Jewish people in this country are not responsible for it. But that just continues, and that blaming continues, doesn't it?
Well, firstly, Nicole is excellent. Secondly, I know what Jewish people are now saying. It's time for our younger generation to learn Krav Maga or other forms of self-defense so that they can actually walk the streets with a degree of confidence that they know how to defend themselves if they're attacked.
I mean, that shouldn't be the case. That just shouldn't be the case, Gary, should it? That should not be the case. And we're in a situation, we've seen what happened in Amsterdam, we've seen what happened in Montreal as well, with Jewish people attacked there. We have seen in Germany as well, we've seen a police chief say that people should not outwardly wear Jewish symbols. I mean, that is outrageous. That is outrageous that you have this, that you have people going about their daily business, people wearing religious symbols should be allowed to do so. I'm not religious, but I've absolutely no objection, nor in any free society should anybody, to people wearing religious symbols, professing their faith in a peaceful way.
And therefore it's entirely logical that the consequence is that people who are frightened are urged to do things like learn self-defense. This has never happened before. I haven't been hearing that very much in the past, but I'm hearing it a lot more now.
It's awful, Gary. I mean, it's just, how have we got here? How have we got to this society? How has it become tolerated?
Well, it goes all the way back to what I would call the Red-Green Alliance between those on the left who are generally very anti-colonialism and therefore they believe Israel's colonial, so they become anti-Israel. And this has spewed over into anti-Semitism, allying themselves with fanatical Islamist Muslims who actually really are fundamentally anti-Semitic. I remember the last time there was a survey 6 or 7 years ago about Muslim anti-Semitism. It was something like 54 or 55% were anti-Semitic. And so what you've got is you've got an alliance of these two groups coming together. We've seen it with Jeremy Corbyn and with the party of the 5 independent MPs who were elected at the general election. And to answer your question, how we got there, that is the core source, and it's all moved from there.
Gary, thank you for your thoughts this afternoon. Gary Mond, Chairman of the National Jewish Assembly.